Welcome to The World in Social. I'm Chris Rieger with your look at the week in social media news, thanks to our podcast partner, Social News Desk, powering social media for over 1,500 newsrooms on 5 continents. You can find out more at socialnewsdesk.com. Coming up in this edition, who shares the article, not who wrote it. Relaxed and online, Formula One extends testing to race weekends. Tragedy again unites social media users. More emojis on the way. And a former child star reinvents herself through social. And later in the podcast, my special guest Ned Hunt, social media coordinator for Racing.com. Ned has an interesting story about how he got started in social media. We might even get some race tips. But first, according to a recent study by Media Insight Project, trust in news shared over social media is more likely to be based on the person who shared it as opposed to the actual news source. The new findings come from an experiment in which social media users were presented with a newsfeed item closely resembling those on Facebook. Everyone saw the same content, but the original reporting source and the person who shared it varied. After reading the post and short story, respondents answered questions about the story and their trust in the content, providing indications as to which variables had the greatest effect on attitudes. The results offer several important implications for today's media landscape. For publishers and journalists, your readers and followers are not just consumers to monetize. Instead, they may be social ambassadors whose own credibility with their friends affects your brand's reputation. And to Facebook and other social networks, the results show they could do more to emphasise and provide information about the original sources for news articles. The fact that only 2 in 10 people in the experiment could recall the news reporting source accurately after seeing a Facebook-style post suggests that basic brand awareness has a long way to go. Formula One's recent experiment with relaxing social media rules for video content has now been extended from testing to race weekends. Last week, Formula One Media wrote to the teams confirming that the relaxation process would be continued from the Australian Grand Prix for content captured by handheld devices, with certain restrictions. That includes a time cut-off to avoid a direct conflict with TV broadcasts of track activity. Several teams have already taken advantage of the new freedom, with Red Bull, Williams and Mercedes among those posting race weekend content for the first time this week. It's certainly a win for the fans and the sport as it looks to grow its audience. Tragedy again united social media users this week following the terror attack in London. With pictures and video of the horrors in Westminster being shared around, the hashtags Pray for London and We Are Not Afraid became the top trends on Twitter. Not everyone was happy though. Talk radio host Julia Hartley-Brewer caused a stir with a tweet asking people to stop all this Pray for London nonsense, adding it's these bloody stupid beliefs that helped create this violence in the first place. Many thought her comments were insensitive and inappropriate, while there were others who supported her stance. What it does show is the power of social media, and it also gives people a way of sharing their grief and showing support. A social media campaign to send aid to Somalia has raised more than $2 million, but it hit a hurdle, with experienced NGOs saying that sending tons of rice, flour, sugar and oil is not necessarily the best thing to do. The campaign has attracted some big-name celebrities, including Ben Stiller, with Turkish Airlines coming on board to provide a plane. The group has now decided to fly in special food for malnourished babies called Plumpy Nut and promise every dollar raised will be used for the cause. Hackers have been at it again with the Twitter accounts of Good Morning America, ABC News and GMA Pop News hit. A series of profanity-laden posts appeared on the accounts, including one in which hackers said they supported President Donald Trump. One of the hackers, or hacker, even suggested to ABC News that it should secure its account. It comes just a week after the McDonald's corporate account was compromised. For those who love using emojis in messages, a bunch of new ones are set to be released in a couple of months' time. Emojipedia has given us a look at all 69 new candidates. Among them, a grinning face with star eyes, a face with finger-covering closed lips, like shh. More polite than telling someone to shut up, I suppose. People are also represented, for example, a woman with a headscarf. There's a bearded person, even a woman breastfeeding. Other possible emojis include a T-Rex, broccoli, a pretzel, a bowl with a spoon, pie and chopsticks. Insert face with one eyebrow raised. Apple clearly understands the thirst for video content. The tech giant is about to launch a new app for video sharing. Clips features a unique design for combining video clips, photos and music into cool videos you can easily share with your friends through Instagram, Facebook and other popular social networks. One of the tools I like is Live Titles, which lets users create animated captions and titles using just their voice. It also supports 36 different languages. It's also packed with loads of effects, including filters, speech bubbles, shapes and full-screen animated posters. Clips will be available on the App Store for free beginning in April and is compatible with iPhone 5S and later. Former child star Lindsay Lohan is reinventing herself through social media with a new show called The Anti-Social Network. The show will see her hijack Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook and Twitter accounts for 24 hours, and if contestants can pull off 3 challenges, they'll win prizes. A trailer for the project was leaked online this week at The Dose.
Take our friend Charlie, for example. Tell me about Charlie.
He thinks he's really buff.
A bit of an ego.
Yeah.
He has no idea what's coming. I've decided to dare people to really question how much their social media is worth.
I can't believe I just did that.
I am really good.
It's understood the show is still being shopped around to various TV networks. Radio Today is Australia's leading website for radio news and each week publishes the social scorecard looking at radio's top posts. Jake Challinor joins me again this week. Jake, I'm still seeing overused memes, but the big metros are getting a little more creative, which is good to see.
Yeah, definitely. There's some pretty funny content, but, memes, they do generate engagement, so they won't be going anywhere, that's for sure.
Damn. Okay, radio's top posts, number 3. Who's in at number 3?
Yeah, this is great. It's really creative. It's from Adelaide's Fresh 92.7. They've got an incoming breakfast team there, Cam and Alex, who obviously replaced Ben and Liam, who are now at Triple J. And they've basically taken the idea of, remember at school when you used to write on a piece of paper a little story and you'd fold it over and you'd pass it around the classroom and then you'd open it back up and you'd have this ridiculous story. They've basically taken that idea, brought in some celebrities and translated it on social. It's a really, really creative, great piece of content. So I'd definitely check that one out.
They're always doing some unique stuff, Fresh FM, and as we mentioned, the boys from Adelaide went on to now host, National Breakfast on Triple J. Some great talent and one to watch the stuff coming out of Fresh.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Number 2 this week.
Number 2, now you and I were just talking about this one. It's hilarious. It's the old air horn trick, and it gets me every single time. It's still funny. I don't know why. It's the shock value, I suppose. But Kyle and Jackie O got one of their producers at 5:30 in the morning, going around the office and waking everybody up with an air horn. It's already had 85,000 views. It's absolutely hilarious.
It is. I've got a little bit of audio here. Let's have a quick listen.
Hey guys, I'm Pedro from the Kyle and Jackie O show. Everyone around the office gets up really, really early every single day, and I thought I'd go around and wake everybody up.
Now that scene there was a guy carrying a tray of coffee, which literally just went all over the place. And
Can you believe it?
I think I laughed for about 2 minutes after I finished watching that.
I did too.
It's a brilliant piece of social. Number 1. Who's in at number 1 this week?
Nova 969's Fitzy and Whipper, who basically pulled in Daniel Ricciardo and challenged them to a good Nana Scooter road race. So it was hilarious. I mean, it's just I think Nova particularly have been really stepping up their social content of late, and particularly content that's social first. So they're not just pulling in video content from the show itself, but they're actually going out and creating social content and then pulling it, on air onto the show. So basically, reversing the approach, I think, which is fantastic, and it's really good to see.
That's one thing we keep talking about is radio stations doing stuff outside the studio.
Exactly.
Which is good to see. It's that's what listeners want. They want to they want that sort of interaction.
Yeah, absolutely they do. And I think, just looking at the views on that one, I think it's close to about 90,000 now. A lot of reactions, a lot of shares. I think we'll see a lot more of that, I hope.
Exactly. Move away from the memes, please. I noticed the 2CH is still, I know it's an older skewing format, but they're big on the memes at the moment. And with people like Bob Rogers and Johnny Young there, why wouldn't you use them and utilise them? They've been on television, they've done stuff. So I would like to see some more behind-the-scenes stuff from even some of the older skewing stations.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we will start to see more of it. You know, I think it's glaringly obviously now that Facebook is the platform for AM's demographic. They are there. And they're adopting to it and Instagram relatively quickly. So I think, I definitely think we'll start to see a lot more of the AM stations going deeper on social. I know a couple of the networks have made a couple of hires in that area over the last few weeks, which haven't been announced yet, but it'll be really interesting to see how that looks.
And finally, before I let you go, Radio Today's had a bit of a makeover, Jake. We
launched a new website this week. It's been 3 months in the making. Our deadline to push it live was actually, could you believe it, survey day last week. We didn't make it. We really didn't. So we held out another week. It's live this week, and the reaction's been fantastic, and so has the feedback, which is great. But remind me not to do that again around survey time.
It was worth the effort, let me tell you. And if you want to check out Radio's top social posts, head to radiotoday.com.au where you can view all the videos and leave your feedback if you'd like. Jake, we'll catch up next week.
Thanks, mate.
The World in Social, thanks to Social News Desk, powering social media for over 1,500 newsrooms on 5 continents. Find out more at socialnewsdesk.com.
The World in Social this week is heading trackside, kind of. We're joined by Racing.com's Ned Hunt, who is social media coordinator for Racing.com. Thanks for joining me on The World in Social this week, Ned.
My pleasure, Chris. I look forward to talking all things social with a horse racing angle, obviously.
I'll get some tips off you later in the podcast. Now, tell me, how did you get involved with social media? Where did it all start?
Well, it's quite funny, I actually got my foot in the door at Racing.com through social media, funnily enough. I was working in hospitality at a cafe a couple of years ago, and a lady who used to be the chef there said she had a contact for me in the industry. She used to drink at a pub in Richmond, and I sent this person a direct message on Twitter and told him that I worked with this lady and that she said he'd be a great contact, and then things sort of flowed on from there. So I went and caught up with this guy for a coffee, and that's sort of how I got a foot in the door at Racing.com.
I imagine that you have to have a bit of a love for horses working at Racing.com.
This is true, definitely. You need to be passionate about racing. I won a quaddie back in 2012, which is probably what kickstarted my love for racing, probably the one and only quaddie now. I didn't realise how elusive they were, but now working in the industry, you really gain an appreciation for the horses, and now I'm in it for the love of the animals, and I'll occasionally have a bet, but nothing too extreme.
So no big quaddie wins recently is what you're telling me?
Yeah, I'm still struggling to come up with that house deposit, and that could be a reason, which my girlfriend can probably attest to.
Okay, now I've noticed you're pretty active on Twitter. Is that your preferred or favourite platform?
Yeah, I am very active on Twitter. My favourite platform is probably Facebook. We find at Racing.com our Facebook audience is growing at a much quicker rate than Twitter and Instagram, and I probably invest a lot of time in Facebook in trying to talk to our audience and get them engaging with our content. So I'm always brainstorming new content ideas, and I love it when people interact with our content because it shows that they care about what we're posting. And I'd say Facebook is my favourite social media platform.
Yep. Now, with your personal Twitter account, I noticed that you've got almost 1,000 followers. Mm-hmm. That first tweet that you did, is it very different from the stuff that you tweet now? How do you keep your followers engaged on your own Twitter account? Yeah,
definitely. I think my account's probably grown by about 500 followers since I started at Racing.com back in September of 2015, and obviously a lot of those new followers are racing enthusiasts because that's the industry that I work in. And I try and tap into the resources around me. So obviously we've got Racing Photos, which is our database for grabbing all of our photos. And I try and post a lot of unique bits of content with horses and their strappers, which tend to really resonate with my followers. So I think, just by posting nice shots from around the stables and the track, and then, tweeting out a few tips here and there, which don't go too well.
Shh, you don't want to be telling people that. You want them to think that you're great with your tipping. Now,
I throw out a bit of a hashtag every now and then. Hashtag on the hunt, which I could develop into something one day.
You might. You never know. Have you ever wanted to get in front of the camera?
Yeah, I have. That's something that I'm trying to cut my teeth with via social media. So my boss Shane Anderson's given me a bit of leeway, and he's told me I can experiment with Facebook Live, and that way I can host a few Q&A sessions. So that's something that I'm really trying to push at work at the moment and get into that space. I've always dreamt about being a reporter. So perhaps one day I can get myself in front of the camera. Racing.com are happy to facilitate the training and everything. I've done 2 pieces to camera since I've been here, just through journalists being away, and they've thrown me in the deep end. And I guess that's how you learn. You get thrown in the deep end, and you've got to give something a crack. But I think, as I get more advice from the journalists in Racing.com and my boss, I think that's definitely something that I'm hoping to build up throughout this year. That's my main aim. Yep. I'd love to be a broadcaster and presenter, and maybe one day I can be hosting the coverage on Racing.com. But I think the way to go about that would be through social media, and that's why I'm trying to experiment with Facebook Live.
Now, in terms of video content, we were talking about that just before. What do you find works really well with stuff that you're posting to Racing.com accounts?
We find that past replays of the key races work well, and that's kind of relatively easy for us to do because we just tap into our library of videos and we can roll them out pretty quickly. But also when we adopt subtitles on our videos, we find that works really well and our reach increases. So obviously, if people are at work, they're in bed and they don't want to click into a video and disturb their other half, then they can still consume that information with subtitles attached. We find on Facebook that quirky bits of content and emotive pieces work really well. So back in June last year, we checked in on the Buller horses, who about 20 or so horses that were rescued from a property last April in 2016, and we did a follow-up in June, and we put in subtitles and some really sort of touching music, and I think it reached about 250,000 people, which is really, really good. And I think, by adopting subtitles and keeping your videos short and sharp, so we don't like to create videos for social that go longer than a minute 30. But for us, it's the sort of emotive pieces, quirky videos, replays, and obviously using Snappy TV, which is our exclusive asset, which is part owned by Twitter. That enables us to cut up videos immediately and send them out to Facebook and Twitter, and that obviously we have the rights to Victorian Racing, so we're sort of the sole distributor of that, which gives us an edge. We came up with an idea late last year after the Spring Carnival to try and engage our audience and chat to a wider audience as well, and it was called Racing Greats. So basically we went and checked in on past greats of the turf and to find out how they're doing in retirement, and that I think we averaged probably about a reach of 30,000 on about 8 of those videos. So, and that was a little filler idea that we had post-spring when there's a bit of a downtime in the racing game.
People loved a lot of that behind-the-scenes stuff, don't they?
Yeah, they really do, and that's a good way to talk to a new audience. Like, obviously, we don't want to just be talking purely to our audience. We're always trying to talk to we always want to get new followers on board, and that's a good way to go about it. So you can showcase behind the scenes at a stable. So a day in the life of a racehorse at the jump outs, a morning at the beach, or a video of horses swimming. I think that really helps. And another idea that we've been exploring lately, we're doing a series of explainers. We've rolled out one. We're endeavouring to roll out another 5 or so. And so that's just on key points. So we've got racing gear, track conditions, grades of races. So just to try and educate people and give them a better understanding of racing terms, and that way when they go to the track they'll feel like they can bet with a bit of knowledge or understand racing a bit better. So
which is
some of the ideas.
Yeah. And now, what's been the big topic in social media for racing this week?
In racing, I suppose towards the end of last week, there was some pretty big news in the racing game with the announcement that 2 trainers had their Cobalt disqualifications overturned, and that captured the attention of the racing game. It's probably one of the biggest stories in the industry in the last 10 years. And we, from a social point of view, I think we covered that really well. We periscoped one of the trainers' comments after VCAT's findings were handed down, and that had the second highest number of impressions for the week last week. So that sort of goes to show the importance of live broadcasting and integrating that into social media. And then we also Facebook Live Racing Victoria's response, which had a pretty good reaction too. So I'd say, yeah, Cobalt has been the big talking point. But from a racing point of view, we've got a Group 1 race tonight at Moonee Valley, and then there's Group 1 racing in Sydney as well.
Have you got a tip for us before I let you go?
Oh, I'm not a great tipster. Perhaps the quarterback in the William Reid tonight. I've always been a fan of the quarterback. And
okay.
I backed him when he won the Newmarket in last year. So, yeah, paying around about $15, I think. So, yeah, have a crack if you can.
Why not? It's all a bit of fun. And that's all for this edition of The World in Social. You can keep up to date online at theworldinsocial.com, give us a like on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. I'm Chris Rieger. Join me next week as we explore the world in social media thanks to Social News Desk, powering social media for over 1,500 newsrooms on 5 continents. And you can find out more at socialnewsdesk.com.